everyone, welcome to my random video of the week. So this week, because it's a hot topic, I decided I would briefly talk about the Cowboy Bebop Netflix remake. Now this week the opening titles finally dropped, and I see a bunch of people have created various competent side-by-side comparisons of the original anime and the remake. So I'm just going to jack one of these and talk about it for my channel. Now, I've been holding back my thoughts on this one, and I have to say I'm actually generally pretty excited about this because there's a part of me that always appreciates really weird, bad movie adaptations. Like, one of my favorite movies ever is Super Mario Bros. Now, Super Mario Bros. Goes from a video game that's all happy-go-lucky, mushrooms with eyes, to fucking Mario and Luigi in a dark, gritty, dinosaur-filled dystopia where New York City is the last city on Earth, ruled over by a sinister dictator president in the name of King Koopa, who is a vague caricature of Donald Trump. Now, Netflix has a pretty spotty record on anime adaptations. I thought their previous stab at Death Note had a lot of potential, but then it came out and it was intensely weird. Now, they've also screened a few bad Japanese remakes of animes, which have also further poisoned their image. Yeah, that Full Metal Alchemist live-action movie is a train wreck. Now, onto this Bebop adaptation. It's been in development hell since the original series first finished its legendary run as the first anime on Adult Swim, when Adult Swim was first created over 20 years ago. Now, for complete noobs who never saw it, Cowboy Bebop is structurally a ripoff of the original 60s to 70s Lupin III. Every episode of the old Lupin run would have Lupin creating some crackpot scheme to take down some motherfucking gangster, or otherwise steal a bunch of gold from some Nazi survivors hiding out in some third world dogshit country. So Bebop adapted this structure into what was a pretty cool and original sci-fi story set in the future about a loosely stitched together gang of bounty hunters. Now, all the main characters are direct warped versions of the Lupin gang. If you start off with Lupin and you drain out his non-stop need for sex, you get Hayao Miyazaki's Lupin. And if you take away all his James Bond-style gadgets, you get Spike Spiegel. Now, meanwhile, Jig and Daisuke, Lupin's best friend slash hitman slash sniper, turns into Jet Black, the burly Russian ex-cop slash dad of the ship. And then there's the girl in the group who's always fucking over the group for her own interests. In Lupin, that's Fujiko Mine, and in Bebop, that's Faye Valentine. There are very little changes between their personalities, aside for Faye having a kind of interesting backstory in the last act of the show. And then lastly, there's Goemon Ishikawa. His role is filled by Radical Edward. Now, these two look the least alike of any of these pairs, but they fill extremely similar roles in the group, that they're the weirdly dressed outsider who has the unique ability to get into anything the group needs. And they also have the least amount of loyalty to the group. Oh, and I guess Lupin also has Zenigata. I don't know, is Ein Zenigata? Does that work? You're telling me that doesn't work? You're telling me you don't know who Lupin III is? Alright, fuck you then. Let's pretend they're all the Scooby-Doo gang, and Ein is Scooby-Doo. Does that work better for you? Alright, anyway, let's just watch this fucking opening. Alright, so this starts off as a frame-by-frame cover of the original anime, but in a really weird and fun reversal, all the English text is in Japanese, and all the Japanese text is in English. This ironically inverts the American and Japanese flavor of the show to make an American show that feels kind of Japanese. What a remake! Anyway, so first off we see Spike Spiegel in the original, and in the remake it's John Cho. Now, a million years ago, Keanu Reeves was going to be Spike, and I dare say he would have been perfect. Unfortunately, they took too fucking long, and now he's too old and too rich to ever do it. Now, John Cho is also a little bit on the older side of things, which is definitely a point that some people online are taking offense to. So far, I think he's going to be okay, although I will point out that while trying to do Spike Spiegel's signature high kick, he broke his fucking leg filming this show, and that's why it got delayed a year. So, watch your kicks, old man. Anyway, now, don't expect me to do this for every episode, or potentially any of them, but this part here looks goofy as fuck, because they just completely failed to nail the speed and timing of the original, so this looks bad. This whole section, this whole area, they tried really hard to copy the original, but because they didn't nail the speed, it looks amateurish and clunky. Next up, we get a shot of Mustafa Shakir as Jet here. Now, in the original, we start off with Faye's legs, and this is all Faye's intro. Now, I'm cautiously optimistic for this guy portraying Jet. Everyone, especially the racists online, are kind of like pissed off that he's not a big, huge Russian guy. Now, from the pre-release photos, I'm hoping he looks a bit bigger on film. Maybe it's just a bad photo and he's going to look bigger on the show. Because Jet always towered over Spike in the anime. That's why he felt like Spike's dad, because he was taller than him. And I'm hoping this guy does that too. Now that being said, Jet's original dub voice actor was black, so maybe they cast this guy because he has a voice really similar to the original voice actor, and maybe that's why they went with him. I'm hoping he does alright. Next up, we have an additional scene of Jet flying the Bebop to kind of briefly explain that he flies the Bebop. Thank you, dumbed down American audience. Netflix and chill, right? Yeah, we get it. Americans are dumb. Now you know who flies the ship. Anyway, after this, in the original anime, we're still in the middle of Faye's intro. But in the remake, Faye is just now introduced here, and I guess it makes sense to focus on Jet before her. Now, I think Danielle Pineda is actually a really good actress, just speaking off the cuff from what I've seen her in before, so I expect her to bring a lot to the role. But I also know that the internet hates her because she started a fight with the fucking internet. You're not gonna win that fight, Pineda. Come on, grow up. Now, the big contention on Faye in the remake is that her costume. The costume for the adaptation is just kind of too far off the mark from the original. Now, I kind of wonder if maybe she'll wear the original as like a throwaway gag like some other Netflix shows did. But I find it amazingly stupid that they took away her headband. Like, why? Girls still wear those. Like, what are you doing? I'm also bemused that they replaced her basic bitch red hoodie with a fucking Star-Lord red leather jacket because sci-fi. I mean, that just seems really cliche where you didn't need to add a cliche. Okay, now here comes a positive thing I'm going to praise. Now, one thing I do like that the remake did, in the original opening, you just see 3 random guns going off here. It's just confetti. But in the remake, the guns appear to be Spike, Jet, and Faye's guns, tying them into the narrative just a little bit more stronger in a way that I appreciate. Then after that, we see John Cho doing the old Spike high kick. Nice job, John Cho. Please don't throw your back out again. And then we get what's probably my favorite scene of the remake, the swordfish taking off from a space dock in a vaguely New York City looking space city. I think this looks so effing cool. This is my favorite scene. In the original, this was just the swordfish flying over Jack over some graphics, and this is the #1 time I think that they did their own thing and it worked for them. I definitely prefer them doing new things successfully than remaking old things unsuccessfully. Now, unfortunately, instead of focusing on the swordfish as it flies into a world of sexy danger like in the original, they start doing this super hokey Batman-style montage of the show's villains. Like, I immediately recognize Pierre LeFou from his costume, but why the fuck does he look like a Walking Dead zombie here? Like, why? I feel like the scariest thing about that guy was he was like a mentally ill child in an adult's body. He doesn't need to look like a fucking zombie. That undercuts the character. We see a random preacher for a second, and then a bank robbery. I want to say I recognize this from the show, but not enough to remember what it is. Then, instead of highlighting Faye and Spike's ships, we get Jet making a bonsai tree and Spike eating takoyaki. Okay, random much? I'm not digging that, but hey, it's random. We also see Faye doing a superhero pose. Okay. Then, in the anime, we have a montage of Spike falling over. In the remake, they've completely redone it. The American one feels like an old Alfred Hitchcock movie from the 60s, and I dig that. That's another positive change, I kind of think. Now, after that, in the original, we have the first shot of Jet in the opening where he's just smoking a cigarette. For the US version, we get a brief clip of the Teddy Bomber character wearing his classic teddy bear mask. That looks creepy as hell. Then there was a shot of Jet running in the original. They replaced this with a random, goofy-looking car crash. That's just not as cool. And then we get another bad guy from the show. It's Red Eye Coyote Guy and his pregnant girlfriend for the first episode. These guys look spot on, and that makes me optimistic for the show. We then see the Kung Fu Master from another episode. And this covers up highlights of the original cast from the original. Oh hey, there's that shot of Jet running. I guess they just moved it around in the edit. Then we see live action Vicious. Oh god, this guy looks bad. He looks like fucking Malfoy from Harry Potter. I'm honestly dreading how they're going to cover his story. I think they're going to botch it hard. We also see Julia in the opening. I'm torn on seeing her here. The shot's okay, but I really loved how sparingly she was used in the original because that made her like really powerful when she did show up. And the original just has a shot of Jet being Jet. The remake has some dude with 2 guns at a bar that looks really generic. And then we see comedian Wanda Sykes, I guess. She's really funny, so cool. And then we see all the original characters running around. And then in a major point of contention. So the hand movement in the original was Edward like typing her way through cyberspace. The hand in the remake is still here, but now it's the hand of an adult woman, so I'm pretty sure that's not Edward. By the way, I'm briefly going to touch on Edward here because it seems like a good time to do it. Now, I'd heard unsubstantiated rumors a year ago that they were planning on casting an African-American gymnast girl as Ed, but apparently when John Cho broke his leg and put the show out of commission for a year, the girl they cast aged out of the role. So to cover that, there just isn't an Ed now. Now, there might be an Ed in season 2, but since Ed has red hair, I assume that she's going to be recast as an African-American because that's the law right now. And then Ed's appearance in the opening is covered up by a cameo from the band. Alright, yeah, the band's important, good for them. Now, finally, we see a major montage of the ships that was taken from the original but moved up. There's also a quick cameo by Ein. Everyone loves Ein. Glad he's here. Ein was never in the original, but everyone loves Ein. And after that, there's a random camera lens in the original which signifies the role of the director, Shinichiro Watanabe. Now, the random camera lens is replaced by the pile of TVs from that one cult episode, and all the TVs are playing random clips in the show. I can see the cast in a few of the TVs, and I can see Vicious featured very prominently looking goofy as fuck. And then it all ends just the same without Ed, and again, all the Japanese is English and all the English is Japanese! Whoa! So yeah, that's the English remake of Cowboy Bebop. Now, overall, there's some good stuff here, but it does smell kind of goofy compared to the original. But despite all that, I'm holding out hope that the show's going to be alright. I think it's really going to come down to if they nail the first couple of episodes or not. They're saying this is going to be a loose adaptation and might go off in its own direction, so time will tell. In the meantime, I'm your Buster Green, and I need 300 subscribers to get monetized. Give me those subscribers, people. I want money. Thanks. Later.